certification. So you have to be TEI certified so that you're calibrated on what you're looking at. The second thing is this year, to make it more fair, and we anticipated this, is to have anybody who received a proficient evaluation this year, going into next year, and they have the 50% of the achievement and student survey points that are required for distinguished, will be allowed to go through the DTR process whether the principal wants them to or not. Now, having said that, we always have to allow that the principal and the evaluators are the ones who are going to make that determination about your evaluation. We can't eliminate the principal totally out of the equation, and nor do we want to. But it'll be more fair next year, because if you have the number of points already, then it's your choice whether you go through the DTR process.
I'm mainly talking about making it fair. We talk about making it rigorous. I want it to be fair also. So allow all 10,000 teachers the opportunity to get to the DTR, because as I understand the pay scale, if you're not a distinguished teacher, you don't get to go up in the pay scale. Is that correct? Well, it was on one. This is like the one or two before this. I think I saw that.
Well, you must have that proficient 2 or above to reach those upper ends to meet the distinguished category, but you still can move up the pay scale.
If you can go back to that slide, I'll point it out. Right there, where you have the little distinguished teacher at the top. In order to get to proficient 2, you have to be a distinguished teacher. Is that correct?
Right.
In order to get to proficient 3, you have to go through that process to be a distinguished teacher. Is that correct? So I'm saying for every teacher every year, in order to, once you get up to proficient 1, in order to get a pay increase, you're going to have to go through this distinguished teacher review every year in order to move up to the next step. I'm saying make it possible, make it fair, so that everyone has an opportunity to get there. That's all I'm saying. But if you have the principal picking and choosing who they want, then the teacher walks away thinking it's not quite fair, because they can't see the numbers that got somebody else there instead of them. You guys kind of have an idea about what I might be talking about?
I have an idea. That's not how it's designed. The way it's designed is that if you're proficient and you meet the certain number of points, then you get to go through the distinguished review process. If you're a first-year teacher, you're not allowed to go through the distinguished review process, because we said that you have to have at least 3 years in the profession in order to get to be proficient 1. And if you're progressing 2, you have to get to proficient 1 before you're going to be distinguished, and you can't jump levels. Otherwise, we have a system that can't be predictable, at least in any reasonable sense. And then finally, logistically, it was a challenge just to do 1,500. We think we can do 2,000 DTR observations. We can't allow 10,000 people to go through the same rigorous review process just from the mere logistical standpoint. So we think we've designed a pretty fair system given the challenges of having 10,000 teachers.
So if Dan has a proficient rating, proficient 2 for this year, he automatically gets to go into the DTR process. Is that correct? Is that what you just said?
Apply to begin the process to go through the review.
So Dan doesn't have to wait for principal foreman to say, I want you to go through the process. He automatically can just apply. Okay, simply because of his rating for last year, he can go into the process next year.
Similarly, a person who got proficient 1 this year can also apply, again, if they get 50% of the points for achievement and student surveys, which is the same thing that Dan had to do.
I'm just trying to make it fair. Because we hear about it when it's not fair. We don't hear about it when everything's working. With a problem fixed, that's all. Thank you, though.
Mr. Miske? Gary, I'm glad you're here.
Thank you.
Welcome. I know we threw you into the fire right away. So
It's okay.
I'm happy to have you here. In respect to the slide on continuous improvement model, systems updates, that's slide number 3. Mentioned that the ACPs and K2 specials have been eliminated. At the same time, we brought those suggestions to the administration. There was a suggestion about spot observations, and I may have remembered this incorrectly as to what the administration decided to do with that suggestion, but the suggestion that came to me in particular, was to consider not grading the spot observations. So the spot observations would be more about coaching and less about compliance. And my understanding was the administration was going to make that available as an option to each principal, to each building. Is that correct?
No. What we said is we would start to differentiate the number of spot observations that teachers receive. So, for example, next year, distinguished teachers who become distinguished will receive 6 spots instead of 10. Proficient teachers will receive 8, and progressing and new teachers will receive 10. What we did do also to make it less like an evaluative piece is we left it up to the principals to score them. So if a school chose to get rid of a score, 1.5 to proficient, progressing, whatever, on the spot observation form, that is up to the school to decide. So that makes it more like coaching than an exact score. And then there's one other component.
Just on that specific point. So each of the observations will still be graded, but it will be graded under an ABC, 1.5, 2.0,
So,
or
yeah.
progressing proficient.
Right.
The principal gets to choose the scale
Or no scale.
or no scale.
So you could put a happy face, sad face, and a straight line face if that's what you want, or stars, but or no score at all. One of the confusing things, the spot observations never was cumulative, even when they had numbers on it. It wasn't like you get a 1.5, 1.5, 2.0, 3, and then you average it, and that is your score. The spot observations were always observations that informed the summative eval. So there was never a cumulative score to begin with.
You might want to talk to the teachers again.
I have. Some misunderstood. But now it's moot because the principals in that school choose whether there's a score or not on the spot observation. And there's still no direct translation to the summative.
Do we have any idea how many principals or how many schools have decided not to score the observations versus those that decided to continue?
Yeah, we have to get that to you.
That's all for now. Thank you.
Okay, Trustee Foreman.
And I'll try to make this quick. This is on slide 3, when you talk about the campus experts. I'm assuming that's the TEI experts.
Yes, ma'am.
I hear from many teachers, and they tell me, I can't speak for the rest of the trustees, but they tell me that many times the TEI experts don't know what's going on because you've got such a moving target. So they can't inform the teachers if they don't know. So that's a problem. And then on the summative evaluations, there are new principals in many of these schools. We get principals shifted around so often I can't keep up. So if there are new principals in many of these schools, they're going to have a difficult time determining which teacher should get a summative evaluation. So I'm glad to hear that teachers will be able to actually apply for the distinguished teacher. And on the I had an understanding that when we talked about the ACE campuses, that distinguished teachers would be put there, not distinguished eligible teachers. And I think that's what we've been telling the community, is that it would be distinguished teachers. We've left the eligible off. And now I'm hearing something different. And again, it comes with the board giving an opportunity for the administration to roll out a plan, but the board really doesn't know what's going on. And so we're telling the community one thing and we're hearing something else.
You want me to respond?
Can I finish, please? So now it's going to be eligible teachers, not distinguished teachers. Is that correct? So I'll know.
It's distinguished, and it has always been very careful with that. If you read the original concept paper, if you read the board briefing that we gave during the action plan, there's a slide on it. It has always been distinguished eligible teachers.
Again, I reiterate that the community believed it was going to be distinguished teachers. So I'll go back and read the concept paper. But to go on a little bit deeper, particularly with the ACE campuses. The school in my district, we moved a principal from an elementary school that was doing well to go over to an IR school. So now I've got a situation where there are two campuses that I've got to really be looking at, because we've moved a good principal to another school. So I say that to say that there is a concern as we move these good teachers and good principals around, we're putting other schools in jeopardy. And I hope that this administration understands that and know that that is an issue. The shell game has to stop at some point. We've talked about, before I got on this board, that there was going to be an effective teacher in front of every child. Those are my expectations. We need to do that. We don't need to move the effective teachers around. We need to find effective teachers to put in front of every child. That should be our ultimate goal, and that's a concern for me. And then I'll just have one more soapbox that I have, well, actually two. The student survey is going to be in English and Spanish. Well, if you look at the Vickery Meadows area, multilingual, what are you going to do about those kids?
Languages?
More.
We have some criteria, and if they're in elementary and they are not an English or Spanish native speaker, they must have an advanced or advanced high on the TELPAS. So if they're lower, they're beginners, they're not administered the survey because they wouldn't be able to appropriately answer the questions. So we're meeting some criteria that they're English proficient before they could take the survey.
So that means that maybe some of those teachers, because of the makeup of their class, there might not be the surveys given on them. So what's the alternative to that?
It would be a random sampling anyway, because not every single kid is tested for every single teacher. So unless they have to, we also have another criterion, the number of kids who have to take and give input on a teacher, and so those teachers will meet that criteria as well.
So every kid, but maybe class number 4 out of 7 classes might.
To say, maybe you can address that.
I'm listening.
It's just the question was about. I just said it's not every class. It's not every teacher. I think it's 2 classrooms for
so
a teacher.
Each student takes a survey on 2 teachers they have. So it could be their specials teacher and their teacher they're with there all day if they're in a self-contained, or it could be one of any of them. So it's randomized, and so it's not any formula, it's just random of which 2 teachers they're going to take if they're an eligible student to take a survey. So we first start with the kids that are eligible based on these criteria. We eliminated some of the special ed students. We talked with Angela who shouldn't. So we have those that are included, those that can address, and then each of those are randomly have 2 teachers that they survey on.
Could you, maybe I'd like to see that, and maybe you can share with the rest of the board exactly how these students are going to be chosen and the random surveys, because that's a very interesting question, because I have some concerns about student surveys to start with, basically surveying their teachers, because I know how students are. And then I understand from some teachers that there's a question going to be on there about the teacher's mood when they come in the classroom.
Mood?
Mood. M-O-O-D.
I need to check, but I'll look.
And that's just a question that might concern me, because what does that have to do with the teacher's ability to teach? And so that might be a concern for me. Because again, that's judging the teacher based on how the kid might feel. If you catch me on a bad day, you might get all these. You know what I'm saying? So that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Trustee Jones?
Trying to unmute, sorry. I think most of what I wanted to ask was covered, but I have 2 quick questions regarding the current 6 campuses. How many teachers do we feel that are going to fall under this ACE structure are going to be needed or are going to end up being moved to the campus versus what might already be there? Or do we have some sense of that total?
I believe there's going to be somewhere around 180 to 200 teachers. Is that? Can you do the quick math?
That's right, about 30 per campus.
Yeah, somewhere around 30 to 35 per campus. Because the schools are the average size I think is somewhere between 30 and 35.
And that's what we're going to be bringing into the campus versus what may already be there, or that's the total of the number per campus?
Yeah, the 200 is the total. So so we won't be bringing that many, because there'll be something less than 200, right? Because of teachers that are already there.
That meet the DTR
Right, that are distinguished eligible, or who are so highly proficient that the principal wants to keep them there.
I think most of what I said, or what I was looking to hear, has already been said, so I won't recover the ground, so thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments, trustees?
Yeah.
Okay. Trustee Bingham?
We were talking about earlier about the TEI experts on the campus. All right, for instance, on a high school campus, how many, first off, what is a TEI expert?
I'll try to take a stab at it. It is really someone who has gone through training originally, first in-depth training on
Teachers or administrators?
Teachers, yes,
okay,
I'm sorry. Teachers that have been identified by the administrator, by the principal, that have gone through trainings and then have met regularly with the TEI team and the superintendent for both updates, learning all of those updates and changes, and then again giving their feedback to the model.
All right, now with these, the TEI experts, the principal appointed them? Did the faculty elect them? Is there just one per campus? Are there multiple? I mean, like for instance, if you've got a campus with 1,500 versus a campus with 500, you know, are they the same, or do you have more experts?
I believe it's, and Lindsay, correct me if I'm wrong, we selected 2 per campus, and at the high schools, 3, and middle schools. So middle school and high school, and the only reason for that is there's 147 elementary schools versus 47 middle and 22 high. And then we left it to the principal to choose their 2 persons. Some of them appointed them, some of them had the teachers or the staff pick them. We left that to the principal to determine.
Okay, because I'd heard earlier that some of the experts didn't know, but I mean, if you only had one, I could see where that might be a problem, but surely if you've got two, between the two of you, you could figure out the logistics of what's going on and
Right.
confer with each other. And
You know, and the experts are selected because they have an obligation to find out. You know, first of all, they should attend the meetings, but if they can't, there's two of them, so one of them should, and if both of them are gone, they still have to get their notes from somebody else. PowerPoints are put online, there's lots of information online. Lindsay's always available, the whole team is available. So if they don't know what's going on, you know, they have to own some of that.
all right, on when the TEI experts are being trained, you know, there's certain situations where you're just in there, it's a lecture, and I hear somebody talking for 45 minutes, and you know, your brain just kind of goes numb. Or is it an active exchange? In other words, are they in a situation where, let's say Mike Morath or Eric's in there, and they say, look, I don't understand what you're talking about. Is there that option, or do they just sit there and quietly just absorb?
Definitely the latter.
Yes, well, I've been to almost every one, and that's usually three parts. The first part is a review of what we've talked about and some updates. The second part is a Q&A. And then the third part is work session, breakout session. They happen in each feeder pattern, and that's where they get to have input and make some decisions on the key points, but also give input from their staffs.
All right, also, how often do you meet with these TEI experts? Is it one meeting and that's it, or is it once a month, once every 2 weeks?
Monthly, right?
Monthly?
Yeah. In addition to their training that they had prior to the school year starting.
That's right.
All right, so if you had somebody who's been appointed to be a TEI expert and they never go to any meetings, is there any way that the principal or faculty can know that? It's like, look, we want to change this guy.
Right, and we've left it to the principals, you know, again, allowing a little bit more autonomy for the principals to select. But the principals know that they can remove somebody if they're not fulfilling the role that's expected of them.
All right, and then when the TEI, I mean, I'm assuming that by now they've had, what, 8 or 9 sessions, or quite a few throughout the year.
Yeah, that's about right.
Is it a situation where they come back and they said, look, we've got these questions on TEI, we're getting a lot of this from the faculty, and you can change things? You're saying, you know, maybe we need to massage that a little bit, adjust. I know we did with the ACPs.
That's certainly the concept, and it has worked out in practice, meaning we designed this to be a continuous improvement model, and the reason why TEI experts are there are to help us improve it, and that gets reiterated almost every meeting. We just had one this week, was it? Yeah, earlier this week. And so the next one will be the training of the new TEI team. But we have improved the model because of the input from the TEI. For example, SLOs was an early concern, the student learning objectives. And so as a result, we asked them more than once around SLOs. We also asked the principal focus group. And I think the latest result from their breakout sessions is that we'll keep the SLOs, but we will make it much more simple than it was. And I think they said 3 steps rather than 7 steps or something like that. And also make it more like SMART goals rather than the SLO goal. So that's the feedback we're getting, so that's what we'll do next time. We got feedback on some of the other things you see here. So, and that's even before we finish the first year of TEI. So next year will be more suggestions and more things we tweak as a result of the TEI expert group.
This is the first year for the TEI with our teachers, so we know that this is a critical year, but it's almost like this is the learning. This is the first step on a multifaceted stairway. So there are going to be growing pains on this, and so many times we're afraid of the unknown. We don't know what this is going to be like. So is it the intent that each campus will continue to have a TEI expert over the next few years? We're not going to say, okay, first year we did it, next year we're not going to do it.
That's right, and the new TEI, we're supposed to get names from the principals by May 15th, I believe is the date for next year's TEI. And the reason why we want those names is because we'll do some training in June, just like we did last year. We'll do a little bit of training in August, and then we'll start the regular meetings in September for the TEI expert group. And I have to say, just by way of editorial, that it's gone very well for the first year of TEI. Just the distinguished review process, the input from the TEI expert groups. We'll see how the student surveys goes, but haven't heard any big problems with the student surveys. We had 1,402 people sign up. We were 97% complete with that, so forth and so on. So it's, for all the worry, it's actually gone very well.
I keep remembering back when I first came on the board, and we did PDOS, and our I think the highest category was exemplary. Is that right, Vince? Mm-hmm. And 98% of the teachers in Dallas ISD were exemplary, but yet the achievement and performance of our students was, the teachers were doing a lot better than the students. and sometimes, you know, you have to look at that, and it's a cold reality. So we can talk about an evaluation being fair. I think anytime you're being evaluated and your evaluation is not as good as you think it should be, you're not going to be real happy with it. But a lot of times we think that we're doing a lot better. It's hard to be objective about yourself. So the intent for this TEI is that we will get the most effective teachers and principals in front of our students.
Can I comment on that, because that's an important point, and we said it while we were designing it. We said it at the beginning when the board was approving it, and we'll say it again now. And that is, when you raise the bar, not everybody's going to go over the bar. Otherwise, you didn't raise the bar. So it will be, in fact, teachers who will be seen as progressing. And we know then we're going to get some complaints from people outside the system and some inside that say, well, now all of a sudden my school has less proficient teachers. Well, that's what happens when you raise the bar. They'll be progressing. Doesn't mean they're not valued. Doesn't mean that we should kick them out. It means that we can differentiate the professional development and grow our capacity appropriately. So I'm saying it now because, and I'll say it again at the end of the year, and maybe 3 more times before the results come out.
One of the things that I was hearing earlier was about effective versus, I guess you have to say ineffective. I mean, I'd love to be able to sit here and say all 10,000 teachers are highly effective, but they're not. The scores don't reflect that. I mean, all we have to do is look at the data. And I think that is key, is to look at the data. I mean, we can do anecdotal stories, but the data is what's really going to tell us what's going on. And so one of the things that I think we have to ponder is that certainly sometimes a teacher or a principal is not a right fit for a school. They just don't flourish there, but you can move them somewhere else. And they do flourish, and they do very, very well, and they're very effective. But there are some times where you can move and move and move, and it doesn't matter where you move, you have a less effective person. So I think as a board we have to decide, and it's a tough decision, we can't keep all teachers. You know, who are you going to move? Which schools are you going to move them into? Because if Dan says, hey, I've got 30 ineffective teachers over here in my district, I'm going to move them to Nancy's district. That's not right either. I mean, you're just passing it over to, and Dan wouldn't do that. I'm just, would you, Dan? Yeah, in a heartbeat. But I mean, we have to be very aware of that, because if we're going to keep somebody, where are you going to move them? And the thing about it, when we do move them, I think the critical point that we have to realize is that it's not just moving them to another building. You're moving them in front of another child. And I don't know about you, I really think everybody, if I were a parent of a child and they said, okay, Miss Bingham, we're going to put a less effective teacher, your child is going to be in their class this year, that's okay with you, isn't it? I don't think I'd be real happy. So that's not an easy decision to make because you are torpedoing a person's career. But sometimes it's not the right career choice. Because I think ultimately at the end of the day what we have to look at is what is best for students. And if it's not best for students, for that principal or that teacher or that counselor or whoever to be in the school, then I think tough decisions have to be made. And we've got a lot of really strong executive directors who are in the schools constantly looking at all of these people. And I don't see the teachers every day. I don't see the principals every day because that's not what a trustee should do. But the executive directors and the assistant soups do that. That's their job, and I think we have to rely on them. And then I'm sure that somebody's over all of them, which we go up the pyramid. So I think that's very important. Another thing, on the student surveys, I think student surveys are great, especially at the high school level. The secondary level, kids can be remarkably frank and you know, they might not say what you want them to say, but they can, especially at the secondary level, they can really come out and they can give you some very helpful information. And I really don't think teachers need to be afraid of a survey because actually you can learn from it, you can tweak your course.
I had one of my kids told me my classroom my first year looked like a prison, and I went, oh, that's probably not good.
Right, and keep in mind that the teen board also supports this, and you know we've had a lot of kids or students say, hey, what about our voice with regard to our teachers in the school? So this will be we think a very good thing, but most important it's research based because otherwise it wouldn't be fair to teachers. So. We've selected a good organization based on they had lots of years of experience, lots of data around student surveys, and they're going to do it right.
I mean, I could just on student surveys. Anecdotal story here. When I was in high school 1,000 years ago, if you wanted to go to college, you took Mr. Musgrave's science class, but if you just wanted an easy A, you took Mr. Hargrove's. I mean, the kids know they know who's. You know, it depends on what their end goal is, but they're pretty frank and honest. And I'll be quiet after that.
All right.
I had a question before I leave.
Sure. Okay.
Comment and to understand the student survey. Once again, this beat up on teachers, ineffective, effective teachers. We need effective people all around, from the leadership from the board all the way down. The teacher is as good as we are that support that teacher. What on the behalf of the parents of this district, the parents, we want a great teacher in every room. I want a teacher for Olivia. I just want her to have a teacher. Once again, 68 teachers are leaving our district. Surely you can't believe all of them are ineffective. I want effective leadership, and we want effective teachers, but they need support. So this constant saying that our teachers and getting rid of effective teachers is good to move, it's not building a good system for our children. We have lost, since June of 2014, we hired 2,322 teachers, while we've lost 1,889 teachers. Who's teaching our children? A large percentage of our teachers are leaving DISD or less than 2 years in this district. Who's teaching our children? We are at this level. So let's evaluate the board, the superintendent, the administration. Let's take a survey on all of us on how well we're doing. Let's let the teacher evaluate the principal evaluate the assistant soup, and let's take it all the way up, because we're all held accountable for student outcome. When you look at the STAR data, when I look at Roosevelt, in 2012, we had 169 sophomores there. Today, we have 79 sophomores. Out of that 79 sophomores, 38 of them have failed at least one ELC test. We can go to Conrad, South Oak Cliff, Samuel, 463.
How many at Roosevelt?
Roosevelt had 169 sophomores in 2012. As of today, they have 79 seniors that are due to graduate. Let's talk about the academic data. Let's look at how many have failed at least one test, since we say academics matter, and that's why we're here. So the equity and then the beat up on the teachers, we got to stop this. Accountability is at all levels, from this board all the way down. We are ultimately accountable, and we need to support our teachers. Grow them. We took professional development out. We don't have that now. We got to develop and coach them up, and I don't see that model. With 68 teachers leaving a month, 78 left in January, a short month. Out of 78, 32 of the 78 teachers have been here less than 2 years. This is under this administration. We're losing. So who's teaching our children? But we talk at this level. Before I go to Dr. Jerry Chambers, education matter and our children matter. Townview have lost 4 teachers in one cluster. Townview. And we can go down the list and look at where the teachers are leaving. So that is my soapbox.
Okay, Trustee Moran.
Do we all get soapboxes here?
Well, Nancy started the soapbox. I just finished mine.
You can have one.
You're going to go on yours anyway.
Since everybody else has told you all what you need to do, let me ask, what can we do to help?
You know, I would start, and then you know, the sense making is important. You know, when the board that approved the TEI and then actually helped give us input on the design, and now we're into it and we're almost to the end of it, the sense making for the community is very important. With the administration saying that not all teachers are going to be proficient, that we've raised the bar, but we're still supporting, that we've said what we were doing, what we said we were going to do with the summer learning labs and the professional development. I think when questions get asked, that's all, trustees, we know you're in the first line of defense. I think you mentioned the things that are working and try to make sense of this most rigorous plan in the nation that's going to help. We're only at the end of the first year of it. To expect us to have turned around the district from 1 year of TEI is unreasonable. So I think you asked what you can do. Help us make sense for the community of what we're trying to do.
So, for example, on the ACE plan, I could refer them to the emails that you sent us or to the Hub article that says the goal is to improve student performances at these campuses by restaffing with teachers who are eligible for a distinguished teacher review process.
Right.
So that would be useful.
Yes, sir.
Other recommendations from y'all, how would we help?
And I think on those, in that same vein, is just to understand that it is a continuous improvement model, and that feedback will come, and we will continue to improve to ensure that teachers are evaluated in a fair and rigorous manner.
Okay.
I've got another one too, and that is, you know, we talk to a whole bunch of teachers. I do. This group does, and we hear some of the concerns, but we also hear a lot of the positive things. We try not to listen to just a handful of people or just a handful of groups. We actually don't even just only listen to the TEI experts, although they have a big voice. We listen to we've had town hall meetings, and so I guess to help, try to seek out some of the voices of teachers who are supportive and are doing well into the system. Don't just ignore the Hub articles that talk about the DTR teachers that are doing well, that are having a good experience, or the other teachers that are having a good experience. Read the Hub is another thing.
Okay.
Okay, so I'd like to add a little bit. There's still more, but I'll be very brief, I think. One of the things that I do, Trustee Morath, is I try every week, though it's becoming more difficult because my workload continues to grow. But every Monday, I try to go visit 2 schools in District 8. I let the principal know well in advance that I'm coming. Message gets to the executive director as well. But when I get, and by the way, the hashtag there is SIYS, so Lisa in your schools. Nancy Bingham, if you want to tweet that out. I'm teaching her. She's got to learn something. But when I go to the campuses, this is not an exaggeration. They bring me around to the classes, and one of the first things the principals say, this is a distinguished teacher review eligible candidate.
That's right.
This is another DTR teacher. This is another DTR teacher. They know full well, and I've yet to come across a principal, and I've gone to almost every school in District 8. They know full well that not every teacher is going to be a distinguished teacher. And the teachers, when I have questions for them, because I want to ask them questions, objective questions, not, oh, that's great, I'm glad you love the program. What can we do better? How is it not working? Where is it working? But when I talk to them, they know full well there is a slight possibility that I'm not going to be a distinguished teacher. Some of the conversations I have with them, they're a little scared about that. You know, I've went through all this. This is a very tough process. It's a long process. But at the end of the day, I think from what I've been able to gather from the 30 some odd schools, well, I haven't been to all 30, but most of the schools in District 8, this process has gone fairly smooth. You've done a pretty good job at getting their feedback. So that's another way. I don't know if everybody has the capacity to be able to do that at 8:30 and 10 in the morning every Monday or every other Monday, but get to your schools more and try to ask those questions. Let me just, because when I hear things that are people throw some things out and they say, I didn't know about this, I haven't heard about this, but I've been sitting at the same table and I've heard about it and I know about it. It makes me wonder, how much are we actually listening to the details of this particular program, right? It's one thing to strictly scrutinize something, which we should all be doing. It's another thing to ask questions in a perpetually skeptical way. And if I'm consistently challenging you and asking you questions because I'm skeptical about it, I may be missing the particular details of what you're telling me. So I want you to tell me really quickly, Superintendent Miles, when was the first time that we talked about the Distinguished Teacher Review process?
Well before it was passed, at least two years ago, that was when we first talked about it. And if I could take the moment to add to what you're saying, and that is, if trustees could help also by not pretending to be or trying to be experts. In other words, if you get a question, assume that we have thought about it or we've gotten questions about it, and there'll be times when there's a brand new question.
By the way, here's one of those questions, just so that you know that it's not always, I understand 100%. One of the teachers, he's phenomenal. I think he was featured in a video. He asked me, now that I've been through the process, I'm really not sure what type of feedback I'm going to get until I'm actually named. So in some ways, some teachers are kind of like, they're in limbo, and that can be a tough thing for a teacher. So anyway,
and so that's good. And so you can refer teachers to the team. As a last resort, me, because I don't want to get 100 emails. But this team has worked really well. I got to shout out Lindsay Koshat, who's back here, for having guided the process.
And I fully know when I go have these conversations and then go out into the community and hear from the community that in some ways I have to be a sense maker, and sometimes I'm going to get things right, sometimes I won't. I try not to comment on things I don't know, and I try to have an open and honest conversation with this administration to move that conversation forward. But I know I'm going to be evaluated as a trustee, right? We've got elections coming up in a couple weeks. We're going to get evaluated. Well, some of us are going to get evaluated. But it's going to happen. And in some ways, I think the community may evaluate us based on how much sense-making we've been able to do in the community. If we haven't done that, if we have not tried to make that sense, they will likely hold us accountable. So we have to be taking that into consideration as a governing body. And it's something that I'm trying to do. This concept of, or this term, the shell game. Let's go back to why we decided to go the route of the Teacher Excellence Initiative and how the Distinguished Teacher Review process plays into that and how ACE plays into that as well. We had a performance evaluation system that gave approximately 98% of our educators a good or great evaluation, and yet we had nearly 159, 160,000 students. Not all of them can be factored into this, but a 10% college readiness rate. Those numbers don't add up, and that's not to say, and one of the things I would ask the administration to really be cognizant of is the culture that we establish when we continuously use the words effective or ineffective. I bit my tongue, I think, long enough, or bit my lip and tongue long enough on this. I really just feel at this point, I've heard it now for some time, there's got to be a better way to describe what we're trying to do, because what I get from that, from those terms, makes me feel like we don't really value our educators in a way that is focused on growth, right? And so I've been able to analyze this tool. I've been able to see what the conversations look like between the people that are evaluating and the educators. And I don't get a sense when I see those types of conversations that this is about effective and ineffective. It's really about how can we support you to continue to grow. Can we change that language?
Yeah, and we rarely use the word ineffective. In fact,
but Mike, even effective? Think about that for a second. If I tell you you are effective, you're a little less effective.
Well, I mean, we could probably, I mean, on the evaluation system itself, there's progressing and then proficient. Effective is not there. I don't know if that's I don't feel that's as pejorative a word, but proficient, proficient to, exemplary, I think those are all good words. I think distinguish is a good word, and progressing. At least we avoided what Arizona did, which is use the word minimally effective.
Right. So, but to get back to the point that I was making, it is we established a tool that allows us the opportunity to have a much better understanding about the pedagogical abilities of our educators that are in the classroom. And we are now attempting to try to identify the bright and shining stars that I know as a teacher in Dallas ISD just a few years ago, I did not have an example of. I did not. For you to show me a chart that says, this is what a distinguished teacher looks like. They do Project Lead the Way Campus Coordinator. They hosted Latinas in STEM Dallas Conference in September 2014. They were recognized as winner of Pete, whoever, Outstanding Robotics Teacher. For a second-year teacher, or a first-year teacher, that has shown me, first off, that we have phenomenal educators that are doing way more than we really expect, and it gives me a sense of direction to begin to take as a beginning educator. Or if I've been in the system for 10 years and I just cannot figure out what am I not doing to move to the next, now I have an opportunity to kind of get a better sense. Then we have the ACE program, which establishes for the first time in the history of Dallas ISD a strategic approach to try to prove that effective instruction, that effective campus leadership in areas with high poverty, every ill that touches our students who walk to come to school with tough situations, that if we can get an effective educator, effective support, effective, if that's what the word that we're going to use, instructional leadership team, we can prove that this works. We've never tried it.
Yeah, that's right.
So when you hear the term shell game, what shell game are we playing? Because the shell game I'm used to is where you put somebody here, and you move them 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 here, with no purpose. What I see is purpose. I see a deliberate attempt to try to ensure that we have effective educators, great educators, whatever you want to call them, in front of the kids that need it the most.
There's a term again.
Right. So my last comment is this. We knew what we were getting ourselves into. We took hard votes with long debate about the direction of this district. We understood that we had a long way to go. We knew what the distinguished teacher review process was. We knew what a distinguished teacher would be. We knew that there was a chance that we would have something like an ACE program. Let's be honest about that. and let's, as best as we can, make sense and continue to have an open and honest conversation as a board and as administration to continue to improve this district. That's all I'm asking. And I think that's what the administration is asking as well.
I feel like I should applaud again.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't believe there's any
Can
more.
I ask to retract my suggestions? You make me feel really bad.
Yeah, no. So at this moment, I want to move to.
Wait a minute, have we lost our quorum?
Yeah, we've lost our quorum. I'd like to move to this summer school conversation, but we lost a quorum. So
Do we have
You
a,
can keep going if nobody objects.
does anybody object?
how many are,
Just-
how many
We've
are,
got 3 in the back.
Oh,
Three?
they're still in the building.
Okay.
they're still, okay.
And you have Elizabeth.
Yeah, and Ms. Jones.
We have Trustee Jones, I believe, until 6:30. So we'll continue to the conversation. Let's go to summer school now. Superintendent Miles.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board, and thank you, team. Vincent gave you the lead into summer school, and now Sherry's going to talk about it. Again, I know this may seem like a long conversation, but we wanted to give the board just an overview of what we're doing in summer school. We've made some significant changes this year. We have summer school every year, but this year we've made some changes, and I want Sherry to actually give the board a heads up about some of those.
Good evening. Again, I'm here to talk to you about summer 2015, and yes, some of my thunder has already been covered, so I will try to make this as quick as possible because I know you guys have a very limited amount of time left. The first slide that I have for you basically talks about our goal, priorities, and the major adjustments for summer 2015. As you'll see as I go through the presentation today, we're focused on ensuring that summer school is truly an extension of the regular school year this year. We don't want it to be a stop, regular year, start summer school. We want it to be a smooth transition. Over the past few years, the summer school office has not only provided the support and the service for summer school, but we had gotten into the business of supervision. We are getting out of the business of supervision. We're going back to the support and service, and school leadership will be the sole supervisor, so that's going to be a really good change for us this year. So I'd like to talk to you about how we're improving summer learning, and I put them into 3 buckets. And the first one being, we're looking at student achievement. Our main focus is student achievement. So what we've done this year is we've selected a executive director for each division that will be the supervisor over the summer school sites. They will be the ones that will help us with the transition from regular school to summer school. Then they will be out in the schools performing spot observations, making sure that the instruction is rigorous, that we're doing everything we need to be doing to give students the best opportunity to be ready to move on to the next grade level. So that's a very big change for us. We also will have ACPs this year to help us with determining mastery of the course, which is something that we do in the regular school year, so we wanted to continue that process in summer. And then we've also, in order to maximize learning, we've extended the day in elementary and middle, and then in high school we've extended an additional week. So in addition to time, we've got an additional week for summer for high schools, because it's so critical that we make sure they do everything they need to do to get that credit back restored. The second bucket that we've talked about a little bit is the selection of the teachers. We are looking at ways to recruit teachers to make sure that we have the best possible teachers in front of our kids during the summer, because we do want this to be the best opportunity for our kids. We also talked a little bit earlier about instructional coaches. Again, we will be having additional instructional coaches this summer to improve the learning process. And then the third bucket, which was the bucket that you received quite a bit of information on earlier, is growing our teachers. We are really focusing on not only growing our students during summer, but also growing our teachers. So we'll do that through the use of the learning labs, so that we have mentor teachers with mentee teachers to help them improve their craft. An additional change this year is that we have the ability to allow current sitting principals to be summer school principals. You may be aware that in years past, only APs could be administrators in summer, but we are able this summer to have current sitting principals be summer school principals, so that will help us with the transition from regular to summer. So that's a bonus, we feel like. This next slide tells you about the programs that we have, and I'll discuss these in further detail on the additional slides. But of course, we'll have our accelerated instruction, our SSI program, we'll have our traditional summer school, we'll have the learning labs, we have our Thriving Minds, and we have our standalones. And so I'll jump right into those. Accelerated instruction is our 5th and 8th grade STAR exams at the for reading this year. So students have to pass if they have not passed the 2 administrations of 5th and 8th grade reading, they will have an opportunity to come in for 8 additional days at elementary and middle to get accelerated instruction before they take the test that 3rd time in order to pass to be able to be promoted. For high school, it's their EOC exams that they need for graduation requirements. So we'll have 7 additional days that they will come in for accelerated instruction prior to the administration of the exams again in summer. For intensive traditional summer school, we provide intense remediation in math and language arts. And then in middle school, we pick up science and social studies in addition to math and language arts. And then for the Thriving Minds, at 5 of our elementary sites, we will have an additional 2.5 hours of enrichment provided at those sites. And then the next slide, again, these are the items that you talked about earlier. We will have the 9 learning labs, where we will have opportunities for our AP teachers, our TFA teachers, and these will be teachers that will be new to us next year. They'll have an experience this summer where they can work with a mentor teacher to get prepared for the upcoming year. And then we'll also have the piece where teachers who are wanting to get better at their craft, they can come in and work with a mentor teacher. So we're really excited about that. And then the last program that we will have at some campuses is what we call our standalones. And what this does, it gives campuses the autonomy to run additional programs at their schools in addition to what we're already providing. So principals will work with their EDs to determine what those programs would look like. So it might be an early start camp, it might be a reading camp, might be a sports camp, but these are things that schools can do in addition to the items that we're providing district-wide. The next slide is simply the dates and the times. So it tells you what dates we have our accelerated instruction. It tells the dates for our intensive traditional summer school, and then it also gives the dates of testing, so when we will have those additional tests for the EOCs and the 5th and 8th grade reading. And that's everything in a nutshell. Any questions?
When you started, you said student achievement is our priority. Just want to make sure I heard you right.
Yes.
Okay.
Did you mention, I'm sorry, I had to step out to use the restroom, but did you mention the longer time
Yes.
period? Okay. Okay.
Let me make one quick comment, then I'll come to you, Nancy. You should be applauded for all this work. Mauricio, you as well. Ashley, I know you've done a lot of stuff. I'm probably missing a ton of people who've been figuring all this stuff out. Vince. But we are being serious about summer school.
Yes.
And strategic and innovative. And there's been a ton of work. I got a chance to sit on a panel with Mauricio not too long ago. The WAS Foundation came in because they want to learn more about what we're trying to do in the partnership that they have with us right now. So thank you, because I know it's been a huge overhaul.
Yeah, I was really glad that one of the goals in here is to increase the rigor. And my husband,
Jim.
what are you coming home? I don't know.
I tried to go fast.
No. I'm glad that rigor is a key component, because I think sometimes summer school takes, it's like, look, just show up and breathe and you'll get to pass the class. And it shouldn't be that way, because we lose a lot of valuable classroom time, especially for those kids. Maybe it takes them a little bit longer to learn a subject matter. So it shouldn't just be where you show up, you breathe, and you pass the class. So I'm glad on that. On the The Thriving Minds, what are the 5 sites where we're going to have Thriving Minds?
Okay, the 5 sites are Nathan Adams, Highland Meadows, Carr, Soto, and Whitney Young.
Are those spread out over the district, or are they kind of in
They're
one area?
spread out, yes, and they also involve our 21st Century campuses, so that's part of our 21st Century grant that we have, that we include the Thriving Minds piece. So again, they are spread out. It's 5 of the traditional sites.
So they're going to get 2.5 additional hours if they're a Thriving Mind campus. What are some of the things that they're going to cover? What does Thriving Minds do that's different from, say, the campuses that aren't going to get 2.5 hours?
Right. The Thriving Minds is more of an enrichment-based camp, so that 2.5 hours is more of enrichment activities. So it might be an arts course or, yes.
So if a school is not one of those Thriving Minds schools and they want it to be, how would they go about becoming a Thriving Minds?
Well, right now we're looking at ways to expand that next year. For this year, you know, we're doing so many new initiatives that we were trying to be careful not to overwhelm the system. So that's one reason we went with the 5 this year, but we are currently in talks with different partners to see about expanding and to do it. What we're looking at next year is maybe doing quadrants, doing 4 quadrants across the city, and doing more of the enrichment piece in 4 quadrants in addition to the Thriving Minds
Is there
camps.
any way you could do it where there's one for each feeder pattern? Or is that just too unreal of an expectation?
We can work towards that.
We can look into that.
I mean, I just think it'd be really nice if you had at least one Thriving Minds in each feeder pattern. What is it, 20?
21,
22. Because they do offer a lot of, you know, really good, those are the things that make it fun. You know, it's like you're sitting there with the core subjects, and then all of a sudden you get some music or art, and that's really nice. On the standalone programs, can you talk a little bit of what makes us different, I mean, from just a regular one?
Well, the standalones can be a number of things. It's not necessarily just remediation for students who are needing this assistance to be promoted. These may be camps where, for example, the early start camps, where a school may want to introduce some of the concepts that kids would have at the beginning of the year. The first 6 weeks, they might take some of those concepts and have an early start to get kids jump started into the year. So those are some of the things that they do. Some of the campuses do, like I said, a sports camp. They may have a week where the kids come in and do exercise type activities or things to keep kids busy, to get, you know, keep them off the streets during the summer, things like that. Some do reading camps, so it may be kids that aren't in danger of failing, but they're not performing to a high level, so they may want to bring a group of kids in to help them just gain more mastery of their subjects.
On the standalone programs, if a theater pattern wanted to do something a little different, would they have to submit a plan, or would it be like the choice and say, hey, you know, what about this? And I'll give you, for instance, out in the Sigaville theater pattern, we have the Environmental Center, which is a wonderful facility, and I think it's very underutilized because a lot of people just don't know about it. And I could see that as a possible standalone program as a summer camp. I mean, I know they're getting a huge telescope in there. You know, you could do astronomy.
Right.
There's just all sorts of, but has anybody ever, I know Stephanie Taylor, the executive director, is out there, and I know that the theater pattern is really revving up what they're doing with the Environmental Center during the school year. But would that be something, or Vince, that we could maybe approach? I know it's too late to do it for this
No, it's
summer.
not actually.
No, okay.
We actually have several summer programs that are in place for the summer in the Environmental Education Center. We have, of course, the 4th grade enrichment camp that happens every year, and that's open district-wide. And I know that Paul Sugg out at the Environmental Center is working with Stephanie Taylor on adding some additional programs for some of the schools that are, you know, within the area. So that's, I remember signing off on the document here within the past month about some schools in the Seagoville feeder pattern doing some programs there over the summer.
Yeah, I know they're doing some things right now, but this is a situation where, because we are urban, and I think a lot of times people get out into the country, and it's like, is this a part of Dallas ISD? And
Tell us more about Seagull.
there's an alligator place out there. You know, there's all sorts of unique things in my area.
Yeah, no, we have a 2 to 3 week standalone program that's out there.
I just think this is an opportunity for a lot of the, quote, city kids to experience the country in a very unique way. And not all kids are, you know, they want to do the country things. You know, hey, I love the area that I live in.
I mean, we have that old bus that runs on hamsters that travels all over Dallas picking kids up. So anything, you know, you ask what you can do to help, anything to help us get a bus.
Nancy lobbied the city really hard to get the horse park in Seagullville, but unfortunately she's
So we just turned our own place into one. So can Stephanie talk a little bit about that program?
Yes, we actually have planned for 3 one-week-long summer camps for the elementary, middle, and high schools. They'll focus on biology for the high school students, and we'll focus on the STAR-related TEKS for the 5th and 8th graders, income 5th and the 8th graders. And the camps are spread out, and the bus from the environmental center will go pick up the kids. We've got 25 students per elementary that slots for those students, so about 125 for the elementary. We'll accept about 125 for the middle school and 125 for the high school. That's what the current staff would be able to handle at 1 week at a time. And the transportation will be provided by the actual environmental center, their bus. They'll pick up at the elementary schools, transport the kids to and from. So it's really at no cost.
Hold on 1 second, Stephanie. I hate to interrupt, but I just want to make a quick comment really quickly. I know, Eric, you got to go to a meeting. And I'm assuming that's just where Joyce just went. So we still got the quorum with Dan, but I want to, we have all these policies. Elizabeth dropped off, yeah. She had to go because she's at a conference.
Mr. President, I feel very uncomfortable with policies moving forward and us not having had time to discuss it. Is there any way we could delay this? Because I know that the policy discussions can get kind of meaty, and I know, Eric, you're in charge of that, but I feel very uncomfortable without us, and if we wait until our board meeting night, that doesn't really give you enough time if you've got questions to get follow-ups. I would really rather delay it.
Conversation I've had with Dino and Faye.
Can we delay it?
There are 4 of them we probably need to move to May, and then just go ahead and move G through L, which are first reads, to May as well. So pretty much moving C through L to May.
Okay, so which ones will we be discussing 2 weeks from now? I mean, I guess that's what I would like to know.
Just A and B.
A and B. Just A and B.
Wait, is B the? Hold on 1 second.
Wait a minute. Let me see which one it is.
He is the one about the settlement agreement.
DEA.
Number A is
State.
A just has the conformity.
Make sure that he's still here.
All right, so A and B are the only ones we're going to move forward with, and we've just.
I'm not comfortable with that.
I've got information on B. Did you
about
review
the
See, B is pretty meaty. Compensation, benefits, wage, hour laws.
B is different from what you originally saw last month, but that was the one that we did discuss at a point with the settlement agreement.
I can be. So
Well, because the other thing is, I ask on B, I ask for a ton of data to try to make an informed decision. And I know the administration is still working on that information. I'd like to have it, but I don't feel comfortable making a decision.
Could we just?
Do you know where you are on that?
I don't have a current update, but I'm having checked with the administration side. We're okay with, there's nothing that has to go this month from our perspective.
Right.
All right.
So A would be the only one moving? Because that is the one that has been discussed. It's only the conforming change to CH local.
it's been discussed since the fall.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, so A. All right.
Okay.
The rest of the, all right.
That's fine.
Thank you, Eric.
Jack, really quickly.
So bring these in May, whatever.
Have you been able to?
Are we still in the
Right.
But you're supposed to be there.
So why don't we just do this, just to be safe? We'll move A forward. We'll have the rest of the policies sit to May. I know Dr. Blackburn had the African American Success Initiative. The only update that he had there was they will have some proposals in May, but they are not formalized proposals, just to kind of give you a sense of potential budget implications. And then the month after, they'll probably have formalized proposals.
So that whole discussion will go into the May briefing. Okay, good.
Yeah. So, I mean, okay, so just make sure that we're cognizant of the quorum. No. We'll just close because Eric's got to go now anyway, so.
And we're going to keep these other items on.
We'll keep the other items on.
And you'll pull them if you want to.
We'll pull them if we want to.
Right.
Okay, trustees, given the fact that we're on the edge of losing a quorum, we're going to go ahead and adjourn if there are no objections. Hearing no objections, it is now 6:35 p.m. and that concludes our board briefing agenda for this evening.